Hey class, what I am doing here is how to make a scale kind of like figure that can go in your diorama, in your environment piece. If particularly showing that sense of scale is really important. So what I did is I found a former student wearing their wearable piece. I have sized it in my I used Photoshop, but you could actually size it in Word. And I did this a little over 5 inches. And so, because I figured this was not a super tall student, wasn't like a 6-foot student. So it's probably like 5'3", 5 feet or somewhere around there. And so what I'm gonna do now, I've sort of cut out the background. I did that in Photoshop. And I'm gonna make a sort of simple cut around the figure. And ultimately it doesn't have to be super duper perfect because of the context in which you're using this. And I already know that because this particular one kind of drapes down in front of her. I may have to make some slight changes. I didn't get way up in there and make, super perfect cuts there because when I go to translate this into the actual sort of pop-up doll kind of thing, because what I'm gonna wanna do is to be able to make this so when you print it on to paper, it's very flimsy, and so it's going to be really hard to get it to stand up. And so I had some existing kind of like black mat board or black illustration board, and I am going to glue it on there. So I'm going to put some glue, just it can be glue stick, and I'm going to put that all over the back. Actually, so I don't make my cutting mat too messed up, I'm gonna work on the extra printer paper so I can go all the way to the edges and get a really good stick. And this is the kind of those that has purple on the back, and I think that can be really helpful. And so I am gonna fit this right as close to my edge as I can. And I'm ultimately, I may have to make a little, I'm probably gonna leave the bottom down here just a little bit because it's not straight, because it wasn't like her feet were there. I've got a fairly sharp X-Acto blade. I wanted to make sure I've got it pushed down really well so it's not moving on me. And I may have to do, with this board, I may have to do a little bit more than one cut through. So yeah, so I can get that. You can double check, and I can see that there's a little spot there. And I'll come back and get that area cleaned up. And I'm just gonna go ahead and take it out to the edge rather than try and do that, because I think it's easier if you work in sections and areas where you're cutting away a little section at a time. So I'll come back in and get that a little more refined here in a minute. Okay, so now I can come back in and I can just do a little more refinement on that. And then I get down to that last layer. And you can see I'm just doing it kind of a straight line there, because I can come back and do, it's just like a little bit of a carving and kind of whittling down to that edge. And I just think that works a little bit better. And kind of the same thing here. Instead of just trying to get it so perfect from the first go, just kind of working your way. And so you can see how I'm getting there. I might just cut off a little bit of the bottom of hers, just have a straighter kind of cut so it sits better. If this was a photograph and she was wearing, you know, you could see her feet, you know, that would make sense. And I've got hot glue out here because I'm going to use that to attach my sort of stand on the back. And because this is black paper or black mat board, it does a really great job of just sort of disappearing instead of it being bright white. And so I'll just come in and do a little more here, but it doesn't have to be perfect, like I said. Okay, so what I've done is I've kind of pre-cut this that I'm gonna actually stick on the back like that. So it's gonna be like a little pop-up stand. My glue should be nice and hot. And I will line it up with the bottom or close to it. And I'm gonna let that dry a second. I might go in and just do a little tiny bit of reinforcement there. Probably doesn't need it, but sort of old habits. Okay, so now I have this little thing that I can stand and put in my diorama. I used the same scale, and this is about how tall she would be if, and I know you're looking at it from an overhead view, but this is how tall she would be in relation to standing next to that table. And that way you can get a sense of, and you can have your figure included in your composition. And I would, you know, although I didn't necessarily write that as a mandatory requirement, I think it is one of those things that can really enhance the sense of kind of finish and give a clarity for the scale that you may find useful. So anyway, hopefully you can put this into practice. And notice mine is in black and white. I didn't even print it in color because it's really not necessary. And so that's something easy you could do. You could also just create a really simple silhouette if you don't have access to a printer. And that would be another alternative, is to find just kind of a silhouette of, you know, your figure and then put it in there so that you give some context of scale that's visually apparent without having to get a ruler or something like that or have measurements. So anyway, hopefully you find this useful. Have a great day.